Homework lessons for Lesson 1, Lines, Ellipses and Boxes, Tables of Ellipses. The first exercise is relatively straightforward and involves drawing a lot of ellipses. These are not, however, simply free ellipses with no real goals. Instead, it is pinned on the idea of setting out criteria and targets for the ellipses we intend to draw before drawing them. Therefore, when you draw your ellipse, it is either correct or it isn't. Start off by taking your piece of paper and dividing it into a table with 2 columns and a bunch of rows. Each of these sections will contain a different variation on the exercise. Here you can experiment with different approaches, but here's a few that you can try out first. For this one, you draw a circle starting from the far left of the box. Then draw another beside it. Keep repeating it until you fill in the whole box. Strive to make your circles touch the top and bottom of the box, as well as the line to the left of it. Next, same idea, but with ellipses. Within the same section, you should aim to draw ellipses of the same degree. You can also play with the angle of the ellipse, and this should also be consistent within the same section. This one's a little different. Draw a wave through the section, dividing it into irregular pockets of space. Then, fill these spaces with circles or ellipses, trying to keep them touching the bounds of the section as well as the curve. Everything should fit in there snugly, and nothing should be floating around. The purpose of this exercise. This exercise is meant to get you used to drawing ellipses in a variety of sizes, orientations and degrees. It also sets out a clear space each ellipse is meant to occupy, giving us a means to assess whether or not an ellipse was successful, or if there were visible mistakes, where it went outside of its allotted space, or ended up falling short. Practicing against set criteria, with a way to judge success or failure, is an important element of learning. There's nothing wrong with failure. It's an opportunity to learn. Having a clearly defined task allows us to analyse those failures and make the most of them. Things to remember. When going through this exercise, there are a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. Draw confidently. Use the ghosting method and draw through your ellipses 2 full times before lifting your pen to achieve a smooth, even shape. Always set out a goal for the ellipse you're about to draw. This is generally what the planning phase of the ghosting method is for. For a more in-depth explanation, you can check out this video or the points listed below. Mistake. Drawing without a concrete goal. I've seen lots of people do these in the past. That is, drawing ellipses floating inside of other ellipses. This is my opinion, of course, but I don't think they're terribly useful, since they don't give a concrete target to aim for. I understand that it definitely is tricky to draw a circle inside of another circle and keep it centred, but I still don't feel like it's as effective as other more concrete exercises. Mistake. Not drawing through ellipses. This is something I'm pretty adamant about. You should be drawing through every single ellipse you draw for my lessons. That is, draw around the ellipse 2 or 3 times before lifting your pen. 2 is ideal in my opinion, but 3 is also acceptable. When you try to hit your ellipse in a single round, it's usually going to come out uneven and wobbly, due to drawing too slowly and carefully, or extremely loose, due to simply not having built up the muscle memory to nail an ellipse. Drawing through your ellipses gives your arm the chance to familiarise itself with what's being asked of it in that first pass, and then firm it up in the second. Along with giving you an extra chance to build up the muscle memory, it also helps you maintain the confidence needed to achieve a smooth, even shape without totally losing control. As you get better, your ellipses will tighten up, the gaps between your successive passes will shrink, and eventually your ellipses will appear much cleaner. At this point, you'll probably be able to nail your ellipses in one pass, but I still want you to continue drawing through them for all of the Drawabox lessons. Outside of Drawabox, you're free to do what you like. Example homework. Your end result will look something like this. Homework 2, Ellipses in planes. This one's really straightforward, though not as easy as it looks. Remember those planes you drew as part of the line section of this lesson? Find those pages. Hopefully you didn't toss them out, burn them, or use them as nest materials for your pet bird, because we're gonna need them. So, you've got your plane, or as the case probably would be, a page full of them. But here we're going to focus on just the one. It's kind of an awkward shape to work with. This one's not too bad, but they can definitely get a bit crazy on account of being arbitrary quadrilaterals. Put an ellipse in there. That's all. It may look simple, but there are some pitfalls to watch out for. Don't worry about anything aside from getting the ellipse to be smooth and evenly shaped, and having it touch all 4 edges of the plane as snugly as you can manage. Of course, draw through your ellipses, as mentioned in the table of ellipses exercise. Be sure to make use of the ghosting technique. This should of course be applied to every mark you put down, but it will especially help you here. Don't worry if you mess up, you'll have plenty of planes to practice with. Purpose of this exercise. This exercise is just the beginning of something much more complicated. In the future, we'll be tackling constructing cylinders inside of boxes and other similar challenges, and these will come with additional criteria that will need to be met. The purpose of this exercise, however, is just about maintaining the smooth, even shape above all else. That is your first priority. Second to that is, as mentioned above, fitting it snugly within the plane, touching all 4 edges. Given that these are generally awkward shapes to work in, I frequently have students who start deforming their ellipses, getting generally overwhelmed by the difficulty of the task. More than anything, it's an exercise in calming down. The difficulties faced here are generally more of one's own making. Take it easy and just try your best to drop a nice, even ellipse in there. Mistake: deformed ellipse. This is a mistake I see frequently. See how the ellipse is bumpy and wobbly, and it kind of reaches out to touch the edges rather than maintaining an evenness to its shape? Avoid this. As mentioned several times above, maintaining a smooth, elliptical shape is critical, and above all else is your first priority. Mistake: floating ellipse. I also see this every now and then, though less frequently. While getting the ellipse to touch all 4 edges is your second priority, it is still something you should strive to do. It's pretty clear that with this example, no attempt was made to achieve that goal, and the ellipse, though evenly shaped, was just plopped in the middle rather unceremoniously. Example homework. Here's what your page should look like once it's done. Homework 3, funnels. This exercise is similar to the others, but throws a couple curveballs along the way and leads into an exploration of how the minor axis can be used to align our ellipses. Start out by drawing a long line with a shorter one across it, marking out its middle, roughly. This long line is going to be the minor axis we use to align the ellipses we draw later. It's worth mentioning that you should use a ruler or straight edge to draw these 2 lines. The ellipses will be freehand, and we want to focus on one thing at a time. Along either side of the long line, draw an arc. This can actually be pretty difficult. It may be easier at first to just draw the arcs first, and then place a line in between them. Alternatively, if you can find a large circular object, or something else to help you draw those curves, by all means, go ahead. Again, we're not practicing our freehand curves right now. You'll find that in between these two arcs, we've created a sort of funnel shape. In the space inside of the funnel, draw your ellipses. Strive to keep them aligned to the central minor axis line, such that each ellipse is cut into two equal, symmetrical halves down their narrower dimension by it. Optionally, you can try to get the degree of your ellipses to increase as you move outwards from the centre, keeping the middle one at a low degree, very narrow, and towards the outside, much more circular. Again, this is optional. You don't need to worry about this if you're still struggling with the alignment of your ellipses. Purpose of this exercise. This exercise is really about getting used to the use of the minor axis line, as well as continuing to work on getting those ellipses to fit snugly within a set space. These are both principles that are used heavily in Lesson 2, so we want to start getting a firm grip on them now. Mistake. Not aligned. This is easily the most common mistake I see in this exercise. As mentioned above, one of the core elements of this exercise is getting used to your ellipses aligning to the central minor axis line. You want to make sure that the minor axis cuts each ellipse into two equal, symmetrical halves down their narrower dimension. Here you can clearly see that they're slanted and cut unevenly. Mistake. Poor spacing. Keep your ellipses snugly against one another. Don't leave large spaces between them, or any space at all for that matter. If nothing else, it's a missed opportunity to get more practice in with your ellipses. Mistake. Being too loose. Do your best to keep your ellipses snugly within the funnel shape. Here, many of the ellipses are spilling out beyond the funnel. As we get into organic forms in Lesson 2, this is going to be rather important, as we'll be using similar techniques to simulate the illusion that we have curving lines running along the surface of forms to make them look more three-dimensional. If those lines spill out of the form, however, that illusion will be easily broken. Example homework. This is what your work should look like upon completion. You'll notice in the corners I threw in a different variation of the same exercise. You're welcome to try those too, just be careful when placing the central minor axis line for each section. It's pretty easy to accidentally end up off-centre, in which case you simply have to do your best to estimate where the correct central line would be. Okay, you've just done ellipses now, and boxes is next, so I'm going to need a lot more tea for this.